Awesome. And we are live. Welcome to tonight's live stream. I hope you guys are doing well. I know NASA is firing the rocket in 30-ish minutes, but we'll be done before that, so don't worry. I'm going to watch it. I hope you're going to watch it. Um, in today's live stream, I want to talk to you about mistakes and fear of making mistakes and fear as a separate thing. And we're going to listen to some insights and tips from Phil Ek, who was on the podcast not too long ago. He has produced records for Fleet Foxes and Band of Horses and many others. And we're also going to listen to Brian Lucey, the mastering engineer Brian Lucey, who has done work for Royal Blood, Greatest Showman. He does a lot of work with Greg Wells these days. He does some really good videos for Pure Mix too on mastering. So we're going to listen to these two guys on fear and dealing with fear and mistakes, etc. Because obviously, if you've been in the music industry, these things, or whatever you want to call it, are very present. But I think it's a very important topic to discuss and to learn more about, because then we can beat it, for lack of a better word, or we don't have to suffer from it. So that's why I want to talk to you guys about this topic tonight. But let's listen to what Phil had to say on the topic, and then we'll discuss it. So here's Phil Ek on fear. And also a lot of fear. I don't know if this is something you have noticed, but I've seen a lot of fear in studios. Like, that's also why I wonder, maybe that's why people work so long, because there's a lot of fear of failure, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah. And it's hard. It's a hard, stressful thing to be, you know, in the hot seat. You got to perform. You got to be good. You got to be at your ultimate best at all times. And are you doing, the back of the mind of the artist is always, am I doing the best thing I can do? Is it sound the coolest? Is this the coolest idea?
Mm.
Is this the best version of this song I wrote maybe a year and a half ago? Is this the best thing? Am I treating this the best it can be treated? No matter what the producer says, no matter what their best friend, who's the guitar player, says, or everybody's on edge, and they're afraid of fucking that up and not doing their best that they can do. So it's the job of the producer at all times to relieve that stress as much as you can. Certainly that means there's times we have to stop and talk about it, and that can take an hour and a half or 2 hours, or maybe, okay, let's go get some food and we'll come back to this, and that's a 2 hour break or whatever. So yeah, there's always tension in making records, and that's good tension. I mean, that's good anxiety, as long as it's not, destructive and slowing everything down to the point of it not getting done. But that feeling of weight, the feeling of that what you're doing has weight and has history to it. I mean, these records aren't going away. A good show comes and goes, and people talk about it. You may love your band, but that came and went. And the best thing a band could ever do, or any artist could ever do, is write the greatest song they have the capacity to write. And the second best thing they could do is make the best record and best version of that they could do. So yeah, there's a lot of fear in that, a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right, man. There is. And yeah, like you said, producer's job is to deal with that, I guess.
yeah, I think it's completely the job of the producer to deal with that, and the job of the producer to have good, hard conversations, whether that's hard, like this isn't working, you need to practice more, or hard that, hey man, it's going to be okay. I pat him up, everyone on the back. You're good. We're here because you're good. Whoever they are, the bass player, the keyboard player, the singer, whoever that is, let them know they're good. They're going to be fine. And if it's for whatever reason it's not working, explain why and have them understand that, listen to you, do it a new way, or a more relaxed way, or even a totally different technical way, different voicing of a chord, or sing it harder, sing it softer, sing it longer, sing it whatever way that makes it go, yes, this is great. And have them respect that and understand that, and believe you, hear the results when they've done it, and move on. That's how you make great records, and that to me is the most important part about producing.
That's very interesting what Phil is saying about dealing with fear, especially as a producer. And your job as a producer is essentially to maybe alleviate fear from the artist, whether that's trying new things, not be afraid of giving pointers and that it means that they're bad or anything like that. It's all about making the artist comfortable in the studio and for them, yeah, to feel comfortable trying things because that's what it's all about in the end, for them to make the best record possible. And as Phil said, that comes with a lot of pressure. So if you, as a producer or even engineer, whatever you do on the record, if you can alleviate some of that fear the artist is feeling, you are doing a great job as a producer or engineer. Um, so that's a really interesting aspect of fear that happens, and not only artists, to be honest. Um, this fear is also felt for the producer and engineer who works with the artist. I think the fear goes from the top all the way down because people are scared about making a mistake, which we'll get into now with Brian. But I've seen this a lot, and if you worked in the industry for any time, you've probably seen it too. Uh, but let's get in and listen to Brian and his thoughts on mistakes. So here's Brian Lucey.
The whole point in life is learning from mistakes. So fearing mistakes is just a prison. That's a guilt, shame, sort of the Judeo-Christian world that many of us are born into, where we're supposed to. It's bullshit. We're born with potential, and the only way we're going to get to any piece of our potential is to make choices and learn from them. Some of them aren't going to be great choices, and that's okay. Because if you don't make a mistake, you can't learn from it. Which brings up Robert again. Let's bring Robert back in. So, as Robert would say, there's no mistake. There is no mistake, save for one, the failure to learn from a mistake.
Right, yeah. It's super good advice, to be honest, because, as you said, mistakes is how you learn, but it can also be hard to learn that, It can be hard to learn that you have to learn from failures, whatever you want to call it, That's not easy.
Yeah. Well, it's a fear-based world. If you're in the Western world, if it's a Judeo-Christian kind of world, even if you're in India, there's a lot of cultures that are very shame, guilt, and fear-oriented, where people are not really encouraged to live life this way. So to me, it's like, yeah, what you say is very smart. You have to be at a certain kind of peace with yourself to step into the void of potentially making a mistake. But you do that if you're in a good place. You do that knowing, well, you can correct it. Course correction is life.
I love what Brian says. He said fearing mistakes is a prison. I think he's so right because even though we don't want to make mistakes, obviously, fearing them makes it even worse because eventually it will happen. Hopefully, not major mistakes, but that can happen too. And fearing mistakes can also have this crippling effect on you in your work. I've been there, but I've been afraid of doing mistakes and not knowing if a mistake or what I'm doing is a mistake or not. But that's a totally different story. But mistakes is just a part of the record making process or anything you do in life, to be honest. So don't be afraid of mistakes. Be like Brian said, be at peace with making mistakes as well. And as he also said, mistakes is a great learning opportunity because if you don't do mistakes, you're never gonna learn, or you're never gonna get forward in whatever you're doing. So embrace mistakes, let them come to you, and learn from it. Don't beat yourself down because it will happen. So these are really good views and insights into what Phil and Brian has experienced in the industry, and even I have experienced fear definitely and mistakes that I beat myself up about. For example, I was working for a really good. She's a good friend of mine. She's done a lot of good things for me in the music industry. I'm really appreciative of her and her mentorship. But it was one gig I did in the studio, and I completely failed actually. But I couldn't go back and fix it because there was also I had to do a gig in Canada, so I was in the studio for a few days. Then I flew to Canada to do this gig. And while I was in Canada, I learned that all the work I had put in was a mistake. There was mistakes in all of it. And when that happens, it feels shit, obviously. I think anyone can relate to that. But you just have to take it, accept it, and move on from it and just learn to not do that again. It sucks. It does. But there's nothing you can do about it, especially if you're 1,000 kilometers away, probably more. So yeah, it happens to all of us. Embrace it and move on from it. The important thing is to fail forward. That's what I like to think. As long as you fail, but you become better, that's the way to go. So I hope that can encourage you. And I'd love to know in the comments if you have experienced any failures or things you thought were a failure, and what you did to do it, and also if you have fear that's holding you back from exploring things and to take chances and to progress in the music industry as a producer, engineer, musician, whatever you are. Let me know in the comments. It was a pleasure talking to you tonight. And I hope I see you next week or the week after that. But yeah, and don't forget to check out NASA's launch. It starts in 20 minutes maybe. Exciting stuff. But yeah, thanks for today and see you guys soon.